Alexander Wei sat in his private office on the 87th floor of Wei Tower, watching the cascade of messages flood the family chat.
Where reactions and enthusiastic responses poured in from every relative.
Not one had bothered to ask his permission first. Those floor-to-ceiling windows will be perfect for photos. The sunset view will draw all the top donors, finally putting that space to good use. We can host the most exclusive events in the city. I muted the chat and turned to the wall of windows overlooking the city I'd quietly come to own. While my family thought I was a moderately successful real estate agent who'd gotten lucky with one luxury penthouse purchase, I had spent the last 7 years building Way International into a $5.8 billion global corporation. Alex dear, why aren't you responding? My mother texted privately. This is such a wonderful opportunity for the family to finally do something meaningful with your space. I took a deep breath and typed, when is this first event supposed to be? May 15th, the Spring Charity Gala, only 6 weeks away. We need to start planning immediately. Sophia replied instantly. The space may not be available, I wrote carefully. I'll need to check some things. My phone immediately rang. It was Aunt Patricia, Sophia's mother and the family's self-appointed social director. Alexander, darling, don't be difficult, she said as soon as I answered. That penthouse is wasted on just you. We're thinking about hosting monthly events. All the top families in the city will be there. The Way name will finally mean something in social circles. I glanced at the documents on my desk. Finalized plans for Way Tower's conversion into the global headquarters of my corporation, including the penthouse floors becoming the executive offices and conference center. The building purchase had made headlines in the business world, though my family apparently hadn't noticed. That's quite ambitious, Aunt Patricia, I said neutrally. The space isn't really set up for, oh, we'll handle everything, she interrupted. Your cousin Victoria's event planning company will manage it all. We just need the venue. And honestly, Alex, it's about time you started thinking about the family's social standing. We've all been so concerned about you, rattling around alone in that big penthouse just selling other people's properties. I suppressed a laugh. My family's perception of my career couldn't have been further from reality. While they pitied my modest success as a real estate agent, I had been quietly building one of the largest development and investment companies in Asia, with properties and projects across 3 continents. We're coming up tomorrow to start measuring for tables and planning the layout, Aunt Patricia continued. Your mother mentioned you had some renovation work done recently. Did you finally update that basic kitchen? There have been some changes, I said carefully. I should probably mention, perfect, we'll be there at 10 a.m. Sophia's bringing her committee, and Victoria's bringing her design team. Oh, and we'll need access to the service elevator for the caterers. Before I could respond, she hung up. Moments later, the group chat exploded with messages about guest lists and table arrangements. I leaned back in my chair and looked out at the skyline. From this vantage point at the top of Way Tower, I could see dozens of my properties glinting in the afternoon sun. The family had no idea this building, the most prestigious business address in the city, was now mine. They thought I worked here as a successful real estate agent with a lucky penthouse purchase on the top floor. My phone buzzed with a message from Sarah, my chief operations officer. Corporate relocation team confirmed for tomorrow, 8 a.m. Press release about Way Tower acquisition goes live today at 4 p.m. All documentation filed. Board ready for Monday's official announcement. I smiled and typed back. Perfect timing. My family's arriving tomorrow morning to plan their charity events at my penthouse. Make sure the corporate team is there early. Sarah replied instantly. Want me to delay the press release until they arrive? No, I wrote. Let it break today. They'll be too excited about their plans to check the business news. I had spent 7 years carefully cultivating my image as the family's modestly successful real estate agent. After getting my MBA, I turned down a prestigious position at my uncle's small development firm to start my own business. The family had been simultaneously pitying and condescending ever since, watching my apparently simple career path. What they didn't know was that I had started acquiring distressed properties during the financial crisis, transforming them into high-end developments and building a global real estate empire. Each success was carefully hidden behind layers of holding companies and corporate structures. While they thought I was simply lucky to afford my penthouse, I had been buying up prime properties across Asia and Europe. My phone buzzed again. A message from my sister Grace. Alex, don't you dare interfere with Sophia's plans. The family finally has a chance to establish some real social connections. Maybe if you had taken Uncle Edward's job offer, you'd understand the importance of networking. I had to admire Grace's ability to combine concern, condescension, and criticism in a single text. She had no idea that I owned the building where her investment firm rented space, or that her exclusive social club membership came from a property I had acquired last year. Just trying to make sure everything is properly prepared, I replied diplomatically. The truth was, I had never intended to reveal my success to the family this dramatically. I had planned a careful, controlled disclosure after the global headquarters announcement next month. But their presumptuous commandeering of my penthouse had forced my hand. My phone rang again, the daily executive briefing. As I listened to reports about our international projects, I pulled up the security feeds from the building lobby. Corporate relocation teams were already quietly moving equipment into the freight elevators, preparing for tomorrow's transition. After the call, I opened my private safe and removed a thick folder labeled Way Tower Acquisition. Inside were the full corporate documents, building plans, and most importantly, the documentation showing my ownership of not just the penthouse, but the entire 90-story building and much of the surrounding district. The family's sense of entitlement to my property wasn't surprising. They had always treated my career choices with dismissive concern, certain that their way was best. When I bought the penthouse 3 years ago, what they thought was my only major purchase, they had called it excessive and impractical. That space is too big for a single man, Uncle Edward had declared at last year's New Year dinner. You should rent it out and get something more suitable. Or better yet, let the family use it for social functions. What they didn't know was that I had already established Way International's presence in 12 countries, an empire that now controlled billions in assets. While they worried about my social connections, I had been quietly building a corporation that would revolutionize global real estate development. My phone buzzed with another group chat message from Sophia. Alex, the committee needs the exact square footage for table arrangements. Can you measure the main room today? Also, we're thinking of coming at 9 a.m. instead of 10. You'll be there, right? I looked at the corporate relocation schedule again. The team would begin work at 8 a.m. sharp. The timing would be perfect. Sorry, can't measure today. In meetings, I replied. And 9 a.m. won't work. There's some maintenance happening. 10 a.m. is better. Maintenance? The penthouse better not be a mess for the gala. Mom, can you talk to him? This is getting ridiculous. I muted the chat and turned to my computer, pulling up the press release scheduled for that afternoon. Way International announces global headquarters revolutionary corporate complex to transform city skyline. The plans showed a stunning corporate headquarters, with my penthouse floor transformed into a state-of-the-art executive suite and conference center. The building's historic character would be maintained, but enhanced with cutting-edge technology and amenities. My phone buzzed again, this time with a private message from my mother. Alexander, dear, I know you're probably feeling protective of your penthouse. It's your biggest investment, and you've worked so hard for it. But these events could be good for you too. Some of the city's most influential families will be there. You might even meet some potential clients for your real estate business. I had to bite back a laugh. The influential families she mentioned were mostly my commercial tenants, renting space in buildings I owned through Way International. They had no idea that their exclusive addresses were all part of my portfolio. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of executive meetings and investment calls. By the time I left the office, the sun was setting behind Way Tower, casting long shadows across the city I had helped reshape. I took the private elevator to my penthouse, soon to be my executive office, and spent the evening reviewing the final details for tomorrow's revelation. The corporate team would arrive at 8 a.m., positioning their equipment prominently. The press would arrive at 11 a.m. for the official announcement, and my family, they would arrive at 10 a.m., social committee and measuring tapes in hand, ready to claim my underutilized penthouse for their own use. I poured myself a glass of whiskey and smiled, picturing their faces when they realized the truth. The property they thought was my only significant asset was actually just one small part of a global corporation. The cousin they had pitied for years was about to be revealed as one of the most successful developers in Asia. But first, I had to maintain the illusion for just a few more hours. I picked up my phone and typed in the family chat, looking forward to tomorrow. Just remember the space might need some work, so don't get too excited. The responses were immediate and predictable. Don't worry, we'll handle everything. Victoria's team can transform any space. It just needs a woman's touch. Little did they know, but tomorrow would change everything. The simple penthouse was about to become the headquarters of a global corporation, and the family's perception of their modest relative was about to be dramatically revised. I closed my laptop and walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. 7 years of careful planning and hidden success were about to be revealed in one spectacular moment. I couldn't wait for tomorrow morning. Saturday morning arrived with the first rays of sunlight reflecting off Way Tower's glass facade. I was already in the building at 7:30 a.m., watching from my soon-to-be executive office as corporate relocation teams efficiently moved through the building. The transformation from luxury penthouse to global headquarters was underway. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing since dawn. Almost there. The committee is so excited. Sophia bringing the full design team and event planners. Aunt Patricia, don't worry, we'll make that bachelor pad shine. Mom at 9:15 a.m. Sarah arrived with a team of executives. Press is gathering in the lobby, she reported. Board members are en route. Your family, GPS shows them 15 minutes out, I said, checking my phone tracker. Right on schedule. I adjusted my bespoke suit, a far cry from the business casual where my family was used to seeing me in. International news crews were setting up their equipment, and the building hummed with anticipation. At 9:55 a.m., I watched through the security feed as my family's cars pulled into the VIP parking area, spots usually reserved for visiting CEOs. I recognized Aunt Patricia's luxury sedan, leading the way, followed by several other family vehicles. Alex Sophia's voice echoed through the marble lobby as she burst out of the elevator. Why are there corporate moving trucks everywhere? They need to. Her voice trailed off as the elevator doors opened to reveal not my bachelor pad, but a sophisticated corporate command center. Construction crews, news cameras, a podium set up near the floor-to-ceiling windows, and me standing in an impeccably tailored suit, looking nothing like the real estate agent they knew. What is all this? Aunt Patricia stumbled out of the second elevator, clutching her event planning folder. The rest of the family emerged. My parents, Grace, Uncle Edward, Cousin Victoria with her design team, and various other relatives who had come to help plan their social events. Mr. Way, a reporter approached with a microphone. We're ready to begin the press conference. Whenever you're ready, sir. Press conference. My mother's voice was barely audible. Alexander, what's happening? I stepped up to the podium just as the cameras went live. The family huddled near the elevators, their faces a mix of confusion and dawning realization. Good morning and welcome to the official announcement of Way International's global headquarters. I began, my voice carrying across the vast space. 7 years ago, I began building a company with a vision of transforming the global real estate landscape. I could see the shock rippling through my family as reporters took notes and cameras flashed. This iconic building, which I recently acquired through Way International, will serve as the headquarters for our $5.8 billion corporation. We are proud to announce. Way International, Grace interrupted, her voice shaking. But that's the company that owns our firm's building. I smiled. Yes, along with approximately 70% of the premium commercial real estate in the city. Now if you'll excuse me, I continued the press conference, outlining the company's global presence, while my family stood frozen in disbelief. The reporters asked questions about our international holdings, rapid expansion, and innovative development strategies. Finally, as the press conference wound down, Aunt Patricia found her voice. But the charity gala, we had plans. I'm afraid the penthouse won't be available for events, I said calmly. Corporate renovations begin today. However, I nodded to Sarah, who stepped forward with a portfolio. Way International would be happy to offer our newest venue, the Grand Ballroom at Way Tower. It includes our rooftop garden, state-of-the-art facilities, and full event services, fully compensated, of course. Victoria's event planning team gasped at the mention of the Grand Ballroom, the most exclusive and expensive venue in the city. But how? My mother stepped forward, tears in her eyes. All these years you thought I was just selling real estate. I finished for her. You thought the penthouse was my only achievement. You thought I needed your social connections. You were wrong. Uncle Edward, who had been unusually quiet, suddenly spoke up. The Way Group, the company that outbid us on every major project last year. That was you. All 5 times you tried to compete. Yes, I smiled. Though you might be interested to know that your company's office lease is up for renewal soon. We should discuss terms. The family stood in stunned silence as corporate teams continued their work around them. The penthouse, which they had planned to use for their social climbing, was about to become something far more significant than they had imagined. In the weeks following the Way Tower revelation, the family dynamic underwent a seismic shift. My phone became a constant reminder of how dramatically perceptions had changed, with messages ranging from apologetic to opportunistic. Grace was among the first to reach out. Alex, I can't believe you're the Alexander Way. The entire financial district is talking about the acquisition. Why didn't you tell me you owned our building? We could have discussed preferential lease terms. I read her message while signing off on her firm's new lease agreement with a 20% increase in rent. Uncle Edward tried a more direct approach. My boy, I always knew you had extraordinary potential. Let's discuss merging our companies. Victoria would make an excellent director of events for Way International. I archived that message while reviewing the documentation for my recent acquisition of his three main competitors. But it was Aunt Patricia's message that perfectly captured the family's desperate scramble to adjust. Alexander darling, about the charity gala, the grand ballroom is incredibly generous. But since you mentioned it, the committee noticed there's a 2-year waiting list. Surely you could expedite things for family? We could name a wing after Way International. I was in my new executive office, formerly my bachelor pad penthouse, when my mother arrived unannounced. Sarah, who had strict protocols about family visits, buzzed me. Mrs. Way is here. She seems distressed. Send her in, I sighed, minimizing the screens showing my latest global acquisition plans. Mom entered, looking lost in the sleek corporate environment that had replaced her son's modest penthouse. Her eyes darted from the international video conference screens to the holographic project displays, finally settling on me. Her supposedly simple real estate agent son, now running a global empire from his command center above the city. All this time, she began, her voice unsteady. We thought you were just selling properties for other people. We worried you were wasting your potential, Alexander. Did you worry? I kept my voice neutral. Or did you pity me? There's a difference. She sank into one of the Italian leather conference chairs. We just wanted you to succeed. When you turned down Uncle Edward's offer, his offer to run his small rental division, I interrupted. The same division that now rents 3 buildings from my company. We didn't know, she whispered. This company, these buildings, your global presence, how did you keep it hidden? I leaned back in my chair. It wasn't difficult, Mother. None of you ever asked about my work. You were too busy planning my future to notice my present. Sarah entered with a tablet. Sorry to interrupt, but Dubai is online for the resort development review. Transfer them to the main conference room, I said. I'll be there in 5. Mom watched this exchange with wide eyes. Dubai? Way International is expanding our luxury resort concept globally, I explained. We're redefining hospitality standards across 3 continents. And the charity gala, Sophia's plans, are being handled by our events division. They'll provide the grand ballroom at market rate, though I suggest she decides quickly. We just received an inquiry from the Prime Minister's office. Mom stood, smoothing her designer dress nervously. Your father, he'd like to meet. To talk business. I'm flying to London tonight, I said, checking my schedule. Then Monaco for the resort chain acquisition. Perhaps next month. The shock on her face was palpable. The son they thought couldn't handle major deals was now casually discussing international business empires. But our weekly dinners, you always said you were too busy with client showings. I was. Just not the kind of showings you imagined. Sarah reappeared. Dubai's waiting, sir. I have to go, Mother. I stood, adjusting my cufflinks. Tell Sophia my team will contact her about the ballroom. And let Father know my office will schedule a meeting when I return from Europe. After she left, Sarah raised an eyebrow. Difficult conversation. Easier than the one I'll have with Uncle Edward, I said, picking up a folder. His company just lost the Asian Pacific development bid to us. He doesn't know yet. The transformation of family dynamics was fascinating to observe. The same relatives who had dismissed my career choices were now desperately trying to align themselves with Way International. The cousins who had pitied my simple life were suddenly interested in executive positions. I handled each approach with professional detachment. Yes, Sophia could use the grand ballroom, at full market rate. No, I wouldn't be hiring cousins into leadership roles. And absolutely not. I wouldn't be offering special deals on commercial leases to family members. 1 month after the revelation, I hosted the Way International board meeting in my executive suite. The city stretched out below us, a concrete canvas where my vision had quietly reshaped the skyline. The family's social climbing attempts had inadvertently forced my hand, but perhaps that was for the better. My phone buzzed, a message from Sophia. Alex, the grand ballroom is incredible. But about the deposit, Mother mentioned you might waive it for family events. I typed back, standard contracts apply to everyone. Our events team has the details. Another message from Uncle Edward. Alexander, heard about the Pacific development. Perhaps we could discuss over dinner. Your aunt's making your favorite. Delete. The family was slowly learning that their assumptions about me had been catastrophically wrong. The simple cousin they'd tried to help was now the one they turned to for help. The penthouse they'd tried to commandeer was becoming a global corporate headquarters. Sarah buzzed again. Your father's here. I looked out at my city, because it was mine, in many ways, and thought about the past 7 years. The quiet accumulation of power, the careful maintenance of my modest image, the satisfaction of today's reality. Send him in, I said. It was time for another conversation about family, business, and the price of underestimating the quiet one in the room. My father entered, looking both proud and unsettled. Before he could speak, I gestured to the chair across from my desk. Father, I said, opening my laptop, let's discuss what happens next. The sun set over Way Tower, casting long shadows across the city I'd built while my family wasn't watching. Sometimes the best revenge isn't proving them wrong. It's letting them realize it all on their own. 6 months after the Way Tower revelation, I stood in the grand ballroom, watching my cousin Sophia's charity gala unfold. The event had finally happened, at full market rate, of course. The city's elite mingled beneath crystal chandeliers, unaware that most of them were my tenants in one way or another. The family had settled into what I called their new equilibrium, each member finding their own way to cope with the dramatic shift in power dynamics. My phone buzzed with a message from Sarah. London acquisition completed. Paris office opens next week. Your mother called again about Sunday dinner. I smiled, remembering last week's family dinner, the first I'd attended since the revelation. The conversation had been fascinatingly different. Alexander, tell us about your new resort in Dubai. Instead of have you sold any nice houses lately? What do you think about the market in Europe? Rather than when will you get a real job? Could you recommend a good investment property? Replacing maybe you should consider an MBA. The transformation was complete, but not in the way they'd expected. Yes, I now attended family functions, but as the CEO of Way International, not the struggling real estate agent they'd known. Yes, they could use my venues, but at standard rates. Yes, I would offer business advice, but not special treatment. Aunt Patricia approached me at the gala, champagne in hand. Alexander, darling, the ballroom is magnificent. Though I noticed the new Singapore hotel project, perhaps we could discuss hosting some events there. Contact our events division, I replied smoothly. They handle all bookings. But surely as family, I interrupted gently. You understand that success comes from maintaining professional standards. She retreated, finally beginning to understand the new reality. The nephew she'd tried to help now controlled more real estate than the entire family combined. My father appeared at my side, watching the glittering crowd. Your mother misses you at Sunday dinners. I'm there when I'm not traveling, I replied. Global corporations require global presence. We didn't see it, he said quietly. All those years we thought, you saw what you expected to see, I finished. A simple real estate agent with one lucky purchase, and instead you built an empire, right under your noses. Grace approached next, her investment firm's new lease agreement probably on her mind. Brother dear, about our building's rent increase, standard market adjustment, I said, as I'm sure your clients would understand. The family had learned several valuable lessons over the past 6 months. Success doesn't always wear the face you expect. Family connections don't guarantee business advantages. The quiet one in the room might just own the room. My phone buzzed again. Sarah with the evening schedule. Monaco resort team online in 10 minutes. Tokyo office opening next month. Family brunch tomorrow. I responded, taking the calls from home. Brunch confirmed. Looking around the ballroom, I saw my vision realized. Not just in the physical space, but in the new family dynamic. They had wanted to use my simple penthouse for their social climbing. Instead, they were paying premium rates to host events in my corporate venues. The irony wasn't lost on me. Uncle Edward made one last attempt, approaching with a business proposal in hand. Alexander, about that Pacific development. Submit it through proper channels, I said. Like everyone else. He nodded, finally understanding. The nephew he'd once offered a middle management position to now controlled his company's future. As the gala wound down, I prepared to leave for my late-night international calls. Sophia caught me at the elevator. Thank you, she said simply. Not just for the venue, but for the lesson. I raised an eyebrow. Never underestimate people, she explained. Especially the quiet ones. I smiled. Expensive lesson. But worth every penny, she replied. The elevator carried me to my executive suite, where Sarah waited with the night's briefings. The family's attempt to commandeer my penthouse had forced an earlier revelation than planned, but perhaps that was best. Sometimes the most powerful statement isn't telling people who you are, it's letting them discover it for themselves.
Yes, sir.
Sarah appeared with my schedule. Tomorrow's brunch. Your mother asked if you'd like to host it here. I looked around my executive suite. Once the bachelor pad they'd tried to claim. No, I said. Book the private dining room at Way Tower. Sometimes family needs a reminder. The sun set over my city, casting long shadows across the empire I'd built in silence. The quiet one in the room had become the most powerful one in the building. And sometimes, that's the sweetest success of all. The end.